What's up guys, this is tcgsam here, and in today's video I have a feature match between myself on Mannadium playing against Rescue Ace Sinful Spoils, which is one of the best decks of the current Age of Overlord format. I wanted to film this feature match to showcase what a deck like Mannadium can do against the best deck of the format arguably. And if you haven't checked out the deck profile that I made on Mannadium, it's already up on my channel, so you have a better idea of some of the cards and ratios that I'm playing. But getting into the duel, we do win the dice roll, so we are able to go first, thankfully, which is pretty huge in this matchup. We're going to start things off by normal summoning a Riem Heart, and Riem Heart's going to allow us to grab an Obsidian. Opponent doesn't have Droll, which means we're free to go off essentially using the Obsidian to destroy the Meek, and then Meek is going to trigger to summon out another Meek from the deck. I'm going to grab Calarium from my deck to my hand off of Obsidian. Calarium grabs Visa Starfrost, and then this is just the standard 2-card combo that plays around Nibiru since Baron is on our 5th summon. From there, I'm going to summon out Astrolabe, pop the Meek. Meek and Calarium is going to trigger, bringing out Meeks onto the board. Going to go into the Crimson Dragon and then target the Barone, summoning Dispatter. Dispatter is going to summon back the Visa Starfrost, turning that into a Lightheart. Just pretty standard 2-card combo stuff for Mannadium. You've probably seen it before. Here, our Scareclaw Rykart is going to grab Arrival and allow us to draw an extra card, which is super nice. I'm going to activate the Arrival, bringing back a Visa Starfrost, just tuning that with the Meek, making Amratara. Amratara is going to add Realm Eulogy from my deck to my hand. I was still on Realm Eulogy at the time of recording this. I was just trying it out for this tournament. It was okay in practice. I liked it a lot better going second than going first, to be honest, because there wasn't too many good monsters I left on my field to be able to be destroyed by it. I didn't really want to destroy any of the monsters on my field and would only really use it as a last resort. But that aside, here I continue to commit the second Astrolabe, and from there I'm going to turn the 2 into a copy of SP Little Knight, banishing Astrolabe from the graveyard just so I can recycle it with Dispatter, then linking off into a copy of Appaloosa, setting 3 cards and passing things over to our opponent. So pretty strong end board, I would say. It's our full combo essentially. Our opponent starts off with the wanted poster to grab Diabellstar from his deck to his hand, and then from there he's going to be able to summon out the Diabellstar by getting rid of the Snake Eyes spell in his hand. Since he does play 2, he does get the extra Snake Eyes to set from his deck. He does have that option. And I think here, what I should have done is probably just use the Dispatter to shuffle back the Astrolabe to clear it off the board, just so he can't threaten cards like SP Little Knight and Appaloosa that I have on my side of the board, because those are going to be very key interruptions against my opponent. I think at the time I was thinking I wanted to play around a card like Talon, so I didn't want to use my monster effects unless I absolutely had to. And I did have cards like Imperm, Droplet, and Realm Eulogy set, so I just end up choosing to Imperm the copy of Diabellstar, but in a sense, that was sort of a mistake because that just lets him go battle phase for free and clear the Appaloosa. And Appaloosa would have been pretty good against the rest of his deck if he didn't have access to a monster that could beat over it. So perhaps in hindsight, I should have just done that and save the Baron specifically for Talons and Talons only. But hindsight is 2020, of course, and at the time I thought I was making the right play. But anyways, he's going to use the Snake Eyes spell to put the Diabellstar to the bottom of the deck, then add Rescue Ace Fire Hydrant from his deck to his hand, and then from there the wanted poster is going to let him put the Snake Eyes to the bottom of the deck and draw an extra card. Next up, he's going to then normal summon a copy of Rescue Ace Airlifter to go ahead and attempt to add a Rescue Ace spell from his deck to his hand. I was thinking a long time here about whether I should use my set cards as well, because I did have Droplet and Realm Eulogy. I'm considering using Droplet to send the Reichphobia to negate it so he can't chain Emergency, and then from there just using like my Dispatter to negate the thing he summons off of Emergency. And I do also want to cut him off from potentially accessing Rescue Ace HQ, since I do know he has the level 1 Hydrant in his hand. So that's sort of what was going through my head at the time. I also figured since I didn't have any monster effects used at the time, I still wasn't playing into Talons, and I did have the potential to shut down his turn entirely if he had no more extenders past this. So I think in the end I do go with the Droplet sending the field spell to attempt to negate the Rescue Ace Airlifter. You could have also made an argument for using the Dispatter as well to negate it, but at the end of the day, I do choose to use Droplet to send the field spell, negating the Rescue Ace Airlifter. Opponent activates the Rescue Ace HQ next, which is a little unfortunate because I was trying to cut him off from having that, but he gets the extra normal summon of the Rescue Ace Hydrant out onto the board. And here I'm forced to make another choice again. When he goes to activate the Hydrant effect, I do have the option to do Little Knight, banishing the Airlifter. The reason why you do that is to prevent him from just going into Link Rebo and then SP Little Knight as the next play afterwards, which would then force out like 2 of my interruptions. So that's a possible play I could have considered here. I also just considered just letting the Hydrant go through and then trying to stop the SP Little Knight that comes down after. But in hindsight, I probably should have just done the SP Little Knight play that I mentioned earlier, just getting rid of the extra body off the board that he has in addition to the Hydrant. Just so in that case, I won't have to deal with an SP Little Knight forcing out my Barone or my Dissipator. And even if he does add a card like Preventer or adds a card like Turbulence, we do have Dissipator to actually destroy them both before they hit the board. So it's another consideration that I missed at the time, but upon watching back, like little interactions like these, I think are super important to understand. When end up using Dissipator shuffling his wanted poster to negate it to make it so he doesn't have access to a card like Turbulence, and then from here he just links off the Hydrant into a copy of Link Rebo, and that's going to allow him to just threaten SP Little Knight or the Dark Charmer right away. I do end up realizing after that it is kind of annoying here if he just goes SP and then I'm forced to use the Baron to negate it. I'm just not really going to be able to save the Baron for a card like Talents like I wanted to. Our opponent is going to chain the SP to attempt to banish itself and my SP. I chain my own SP, getting rid of my own Baron and my opponent's SP Little Knight. That's going to reset the Baron the next time it comes back onto the field, and that's sort of what I was going for. I figured that worst case scenario, if he somehow does have Turbulence as his one of his last cards in hand, I'm going to be able to use Realm Eulogy to negate it. But luckily for us, he just sets 2 and the SP and Baron come back to the board. And at this point, I'm just in such a commanding position that it doesn't really matter if his back row are real or not, because the first action I can do is just go straight Dissipator targeting out when I Reimpart for follow-up. And then from here, our opponent just concedes because they know that we're going to be too far ahead. So we do take down game 1, thankfully, although we do make a few mistakes on our end. Going on into game 2, our opponent hits us with a curveball and makes us go first post-siding. I definitely sided for going second, but thankfully our hand is good enough to go first with. We start things off with Kashtira Fenrir to be able to add a Scarecrow Kashtira from our deck to our hand. Unfortunately, our opponent does have Droll and Lockbird, which is the bane of our existence. We're not going to be able to do too much about it. We weren't playing Crossout Designator at the time, so we only had a one of Call by the Grave, which we did not draw, unfortunately. Meaning that our end board is just going to comprise of Fenrir and 2 sets as we pass things over to our opponent. Our opponent's going to start things off with Reinforcement of the Army, allowing him to add Rescue Ace Airlifter from his deck to his hand. Imperms the Fenrir before summoning Airlifter. Airlifter effect is going to be able to attempt to add a Rescue Ace spell. He's going to chain the Emergency on the Airlifter, interestingly enough, to summon out the Hydrant, and then Airlifter is going to go ahead and grab the Rescue, the Reborn spell, and right here, I believe I do have a copy of Infinite Impermanence. So when my opponent goes ahead and uses Rescue to target the Airlifter, I think I have to chain Imperm here, because if I don't, the Rescue Ace Fire Hydrant is going to be untargetable by card effects, and then I'm going to just not be able to do anything to it, and he's going to be able to resolve his search for either a Preventer or a Turbulence, and I just wanted to prevent that. So I think that it's super important to realize that even if I save the Imperm for the Turbulence, at that point he's already gotten to a monster like SP Little Knight, or he's already gotten to a bunch of Link plays, so I just want to cut him off from extra bodies for Link plays as much as possible. And our opponent just goes into the SP Little Knight play. SP Little Knight is going to allow him to banish the Fenrir from our board, and then from there he's just going to pass things over to us. We're just going to activate the set Obsidian that we have, targeting our set Meek, and unfortunately here I probably shouldn't have set the Obsidian because we did draw an Imperm for turn, and if we had just been able to Imperm the Little Knight, we would have been able to maybe do a little bit more from there. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, as he does have Ash for our Obsidian, and he's going to just go into another copy Little Knight, banishing my Mannadium Meek, and then from there he's going to return the Rescue Ace Hydrant from the Preventer. And then from here, I know I have to Imperm the Rescue Ace Hydrant before, otherwise he's going to be able to chain the effect of the SP Little Knight getting rid of itself and the Hydrant to dodge it. So I just Imperm the Hydrant on the summon, and then from there hopefully cut off our opponent from whatever he could possibly have to continue his plays with. And thankfully he doesn't have anything past this, I believe, so he is just going to pass with Little Knight. But unfortunately for us, Little Knight is quite strong in a simplified game state like this, considering we have Scarecrow Kashtira in our hand with no other way to summon it onto the board, and we have another copy of Obsidian in our hand, I believe, and with no way to put a monster on board. It's just really unfortunate because as soon as we draw that monster, we're gonna have to play it in a weird way so that our Obsidian is going to be able to resolve. We have to do weird things like setting our monster and then activating Obsidian, and then from there add the copy of Calarium from our deck to our hand, grab Visas, Obsidian summon Visas from hand, and then do our plays from there. We do draw Scareclaw right card for turn, which I think is a pretty solid draw in this situation. I was just contemplating how I can actually be able to sequence my play so that I'm going to be able to actually add a Scareclaw card from my deck to my hand and get the Scareclaw Cashier onto the board in the most optimal way possible. I thought about it for a while, and in the end I decided to just go ahead and normal summon the right card right away and go ahead and grab a rival, which is strange that my opponent lets this go through, because now at this point, if I just link into the link 1 and activate its effect, my Scareclaw right card's already in the graveyard, which is already good enough for us. And even if our opponent SP Little Knights banishing itself and the copy of Lightheart here, it doesn't really matter because we have access to our plays already. So I really didn't expect them to let me get this far, meaning at this point we have access to our Visa Starfrost already, and what we're going to do is activate the Arrival, targeting the Scareclaw Rykart, and then from here I'm going to activate the Obsidian to summon out a copy of the Visas from my hand. Our opponent's forced to use SP Little Knight here. In hindsight, I definitely shouldn't have done it like that. But in the end, we're able to activate the Obsidian to destroy the Lightheart from our board and then grab another Calarium. Activate the Calarium here and use that effect to grab Meek. I wasn't too sure if I actually had game here. I probably did if I had a little bit more time to think about it, but at the time of playing this, I just figured that I should just try to put as many bodies on the board as possible, start filling up my graveyard with those extra bodies from Visa Starfrost, and put a 1521 into rotation. But it's here that I realized I actually can't get a 1521 into rotation, which is super unfortunate because Vicious Astral definitely would have helped me push for game. So all I can really do is just add a follow-up spell, which I think is just really poor play on my part. I definitely should have sequenced my plays a little bit better around his SP Little Knight. And at this point, I'm calculating in my head, and I actually am short like 100 damage per game, I believe, because I can go into access code that's 53, plus I have the Amritara that can pop a monster, which is going to boost all my synchros by 800, and then the Calarium is boosting my Amritara by like an extra 200 or something. But in my head I was doing the calculations, and that turns out to be 100 off of game, which is just super unfortunate because if we had just gone for game, it would have been a very nice way to close out this match. But unfortunately, we just don't see the line. Let me know in the comments below if you see a line in the situation that I'm in right now to actually go for game. I figured that we're actually missing an extra body somehow to go ahead and make Unicorn and make our access code big enough, because right now all we can really do is make our access code 4300, which is why I said I'm missing game by 100. Our access code can't get up to 5300, which is just super unfortunate. But in my head I was thinking, okay, what I can do is maybe draw into like a hand trap or some interruption or something, plus keep the Little Knight that I stole from him. And sort of hope that gets me far enough to survive another turn and make it so our opponent doesn't draw anything. But unfortunately for me, I also forget that he has Linkuriboh in the graveyard, which is actually pretty huge, because here when I commit to linking off my two monsters for a copy of Unicorn and then discarding a card, he activates the Linkuriboh, and I totally forgot it had that quick effect to summon itself back, which was just a huge mistake on my end. Unfortunately, nothing we can really do about that. All we have left is a Little Knight on our board and a Unicorn, and I sided out Appaloosa, unfortunately, for the Dark Charmer. So in the future, I probably would consider siding out another card as opposed to Appaloosa, because Appaloosa does come up in situations like this. But regardless, we pass things over back to our opponent. He's going to activate the alert to grab back the Hydrant from his graveyard to his hand. Normal summon the Hydrant. Hydrant's going to be able to grab Turbulence. And at this point, we're sort of just dead. Our SP Little Knight's not going to be able to actually stop anything meaningful from our opponent's end, and even if he does go Turbulence, summon itself, activate his effect, and we do chain SP Little Knight, it doesn't really matter. Here I just wanted to use SP to get rid of the Hydrant and the rescue its body off the board, but once again I forget Linkuriboh does have that effect, so we're not able to banish the card successfully, and once again just goes to show that how these small interactions can make a huge world of difference. Our opponent goes Talons next to steal our unicorn, and makes his own access code. Access code's gonna gain the attack from our unicorn, and then from here he's just gonna clear our board and just go for game. So unfortunately we do lose this game. A few misplays. Maybe we could have had an OTK on that turn. Let me know in the comments once again if you saw the line, but we do actually end the duel off here in a draw because we are out of time, unfortunately. But with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you thought about it in the comment section below, and with that, I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.